Thank you very much for tuning in to episode 13 of Pushing the Pylon. This is your host, Jim Tannhauser. And before you say anything, I am sorry for the long hiatus we've had away from this podcast. If you don't recognize me, it's still Jim Tannhauser. It's still Pushing the Pylon. We're still rocking sports-related hats, of course. This time it's the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl champions hat. They've come a long way away from that Super Bowl win. Looking rough this year. However, something else I want to get into more so is you may not see the full shirt, but we'll stand up for the viewing audience if you're watching this on YouTube. It says, Dan Orlovsky is my homeboy. Now, out there, some of you may be saying, one, why do you own a Dan Orlovsky shirt? Two, you may be asking, where did you find a shirt that says Dan Orlovsky is my homeboy? And three, you may be asking, why in the world would he be your homeboy, Jim? I'm going to answer all three of those, as a matter of fact. So, for those of you who watch ESPN often, you may know Dan Orlovsky is an analyst on ESPN, often on NFL Live. So, of course, on NFL Live, they talk about the Jaguars. And, of course, on NFL Live, they talk about the struggles of the Jaguars, one of which being the Trevor Lawrence experiment, you know? And early on in the year, you had I don't want to say all, but a lot of ESPN analysts questioning Trevor Lawrence, questioning should he have been the number one pick? Is he really the best quarterback in this draft class? Is Mac Jones proving to be better than Trevor Lawrence? You and I both know that's a ton of malarkey. Not Mike Malarkey, but still, a crazy take in my opinion. And Dan Orlovsky constantly and repeatedly defends Trevor Lawrence. Less so the Jaguars. We don't have to defend them. We'll get into the Jaguars later. Don't you worry about that. But he defends Trevor Lawrence, saying how it's not fair to judge him based on his first X amount of games. It's not fair to not consider the situations each rookie quarterback is in to kind of, muddy up the waters in judgment. So I saw one of these one day, one of the video clips they post on Twitter from these debates, and I was just so happy to see an NFL analyst, a former quarterback at that, former NFL quarterback at that, defend Trevor Lawrence, and that really made me happy and optimistic. Not that I needed the optimism, I'm very optimistic about Trevor Lawrence, but to see it from someone else, that's a big deal, So I tweeted at him. And actually, let me pull up the exact tweet now so I don't get it wrong. If I can find it anyway. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to be hard to find. Can't find it now, but we'll post it right up there somewhere on the video. Anyway, I pretty much tweeted at him saying, hey, I've seen your great work defending Trevor Lawrence. I found a Dan Orlovsky is my homeboy shirt. If you retweet this, I'll buy it, So he liked it, and I think he might have quote tweeted it. But he basically recognized or acknowledged the tweet, which was enough for me. I mean, hey, Dan Orlovsky looking at your tweet, big things coming. My one regret, I didn't tweet it from the Pushing the Pylon account. So at least he could have saw what we're doing here. In the meantime, I'm going to clip this whole video and send it to you, Dan Orlovsky. So if you are watching this, thank you very much. Appreciate you defending Trevor Lawrence fairly, equally, and responsibly. And for that, just know that you have a 26 going on 27-year-old podcaster on Pushing the Pylon that owns a Dan Orlovsky is my homeboy blue t-shirt in Lions colors, which is very fitting this week. Detroit Lions getting their first win of the season, finally, on the Minnesota Vikings, which may seem surprising until you realize and remember NFC North rivals. Division matchups is where you get the least amount of parity, in my opinion, in terms of consistent winners. And the years where the Jaguars, with the years where the Jaguars were bad 10, 12 years ago, Jim, that was every year. No, back when they were bad 10, 12 years ago, and the Colts were one of the best teams in the league, the Jaguars usually managed to win at least one game out of the season still, even when the Colts were good. And that's just because teams tend to get up more for division rivalries. When your rival's on the other side of the field, especially when you play them twice a year, people are more likely to bring it. Things are more likely to happen with intensity, with just more motivation, which causes more upsets, I believe, in those situations, which kind of leads to how the Lions, I thought their win may have came against the Cleveland Browns. We'll get into Cleveland after, don't you worry. But to have it against the Vikings, it was surprising. I picked the Vikings, so I definitely didn't see it coming. Last play of the game, touchdown throw to my boy Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Jared Goff, NFC Player of the Week, NFC Offensive Player of the Week, I believe he was this week for his performance. Of course, he was on my fantasy bench this week because of his putrid performances in weeks prior. But that's great to see. That's good for Dan Campbell. That's good for Jared Goff. That's good for all the young kids on Detroit and all the veterans on Detroit, frankly. But most importantly of all, as a Jaguars fan, I can relate to how big those wins are. And it's the biggest for all. It's for those Lions fans. And it was really cool, a somber moment, a tragic moment at that. But Dan Campbell dedicated the win to the victims of the shooting. And it was, not to get the school wrong or the name of the school wrong, but it was the school in Michigan that was, that had a shooting at it and casualties and unfortunate losses of life. So him dedicating the win to those families and the victims was really cool and a class move by Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell seems to be that kind of guy, though. He seems like the coach that, we'd all want to play for. He seems like the coach that he wanted that win more than some, if not all of those players in the locker room. You know what I mean? So good for Dan Campbell on that. Not to get off on a tangent, though, staying back to the Browns, like I said, that's where I've been the past 2 weeks. I wasn't in Cleveland for the full 2 weeks, but our last podcast I left you with, I said that I'd be leaving for Cleveland, that I'd be recording a podcast over there, and that I'd have a good amount of film and content from Cleveland to bring back to you all. And like the fashionable legend Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I have a lot of content from Cleveland. I went to Cleveland, but I didn't film a podcast episode in Cleveland. The timing wasn't right. The situation wasn't right. I was enjoying my trip, where I didn't really want to sit in the hotel room and record or spend an hour and 2 working on this. And, that may seem, unmotivated for this, but I don't get out often on vacations. Especially at Cleveland, Ohio at that. That was really special to me when the Buckeyes played on Saturday. I got to see the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. I went to the Cleveland Cavaliers on Monday, and I was out on Tuesday flying out, and I saw the Christmas Story house as well. But all in all, it was a fantastic trip. And now I promise, I'm not sure when, but I'm trying my hand at it. I don't want to give the content to my producer who produces this podcast. Shout out Big Drip, a.k.a. John Pichek, a.k.a. 45 Street Studios. I wanted to try it out myself. I wanted to try to put together a little compilation of my own, produce it, post it, and hopefully it comes out halfway decent. But the trip to Cleveland, not to spoil the whole thing away, because I do want people to watch that video, but we'll talk about the Browns game because that relates directly to our podcast. But I went to the Browns-Lions game. Weirdest combination game of all time that I could have ended up at. I'm not a Lions fan. I'm not a Browns fan. Why am I at that game? Great question. Hey, when in Rome, right? When in Cleveland, right? I had pretty decent seats. I was pretty close to the field, surrounded by, I'll tell you what, diehard Browns fans and a couple diehard Lions fans. It was a pretty neat experience. The not neat part of it, though, was that it was raining, that it was cold, it was storming. I think the rain let up for about 5 to 10 minutes total throughout the whole game, and that's about minutes or two spread out throughout each 4 quarters. But one big thing about Cleveland, and especially Cleveland Browns, if you want to know one thing about it, is that their tailgating experience is ridiculous. I repeat, ridiculous. You had trucks that just decked out in Browns gear, decked out in Browns paint, grills galore. Obviously, I mean, most tailgates have that, but there was just the intensity about it, the dedication about it, the crappy weather and the cold and the rain, and against the Lions at that, where it's not even a conference rival. The tailgate would have fooled you. You would have thought it was a playoff tailgate. These people were out there wilding. I got to the tailgate just to check it out at about 10 a.m. Gates didn't open until 11 to get into the stadium. But everyone was partied out by 10 o'clock when I got there, put it that way. And regrettably, I didn't go interview people. I kind of, it's one of those things where you go into the vacation, you say, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the other thing. But then I kind of just got caught up in the moment. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I took a few clips of film of the cool things I saw at the tailgate, of course. But I just really soaked it all in. I was by myself. I didn't go on, this was not only one of my first vacations, in my adult life. It wasn't my first, but one of my first. It was my first solo vacation. So traveling alone, incredible experience. I'll tell you what. Not to get into all the travel stuff though. This is a football podcast, but the tailgating in Cleveland, incredible. People walking up and down the streets, even out of the tailgate area, with just cases of beer in their hand, open beers in their hand. They don't care over there, especially on game day. I don't know if they have laws in the in the city of Cleveland on game day Sundays. I don't. But anyway, getting to the stadium, it's pouring by now. It's pouring. Not downpours, but pouring enough where you can't look at your phone without getting the screen soaked where it's unreadable about 15 seconds into trying to look at it. So I was walking around the stadium and I said, you know what? I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to buy a poncho. I've never worn a poncho in my life. This is a perfect situation for a poncho. You only live once. And the fact they don't allow umbrellas in stadiums. So I went to a stand. I saw they had ponchos for $5. They had Cleveland Browns ponchos for $7. So yours truly said, I have to buy the Cleveland Browns poncho, even though they're both just garbage bags. One's orange and one's white. I spent $2 extra because, hey, when in Cleveland, right? Got that thing on. It works. I'll tell you what, it works great. I was able to use my phone inside of the poncho so that, the rain didn't get on it, and that was pretty neat. They have charging stations all over the stadium. Also at the Cavaliers game they did too, so I don't know if that's just a Cleveland thing or more stadiums around the country are starting to do it. But just charging stations for whatever phone you need. Awesome to have as someone who likes to film like I do, or Snapchat or text when I'm there. But anyway, got my food, sat down, and watched warm-ups. And it was pretty cool to watch warm-ups even in the rain. Saw Tim Boyle warming up. He looked better in warm-ups than he did during the game. I think that's easy to say. Baker Mayfield came out pregame to a pretty good ovation, which by the end of the game, if you didn't know, ceased. They weren't applauding for him as loud toward the end of the game as they were in the beginning, even in a victory. But the biggest ovation by far for the Cleveland Browns when they came out of the tunnel to warm up was Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry was... They love him there. They love him. They love David Njoku there. They obviously love Nick Chubb, but when the other two came out, the place went nuts. They loved those guys. And Njoku came out warming up with no shirt, no jersey, nothing. I mean, obviously he wore pants and cleats, but just went out there in the rain looking like an absolute savage, shirtless, trying to show the other team we ain't cold, we ain't scared, that good old macho race to see who can wear the least amount of sleeves on a cold day, But it was a good warm up, and then the game went. Was a fun game. I mean, the score made it look like it wasn't a fun game. The two teams made it look like it wasn't a fun game. The fact you had Baker Mayfield, who hasn't been throwing great all year, against Tim Boyle, who, what? Yeah. Dan Orlovsky would have been better in that game. I'm just saying. But it was a very exciting game, and to the point I was getting at about the crowd was losing support for Baker, what you had happening was the play call was awful. I mean, you have people in the crowd questioning Kevin Stefanski, which weird because if you go anywhere else in the league, they'll tell you he's one of the top coaches in terms of what he's done to improve the Browns. You would hear that from outside in the media. But being at the Browns game, you had a lot of groaning people in the crowd saying, what is this play? That's a terrible play call. Why would you run this play on third down? Why would you run this play on second down? I know I was only in my section. I can't speak for the whole stadium, obviously. But they were not happy with Kevin Stefanski. They were also not happy with Baker Mayfield. Just didn't... I don't know if they don't... It's a weird situation, right? I'm trying to figure out how to word this, but I think we all are under the impression Baker Mayfield is injured. He has a bunch of nagging injuries he's fighting through and playing through this year. And it's obviously hindering his performance to be at his top performance. Which is a shame, of course. We don't want to see anyone injured. And if they are injured, we want to see them off the field and rested up and healing. But the crowd just seems to be in this attitude, which, fair to the fans, I suppose, is if you're going to be on the field, we're going to hold you to the standards to play to your best. If you're not able to play to your best, don't be on the field. Let your backup play. Especially when you're not able to go out there and give it your top performance. And I think Baker showed that he wasn't able to do that. You had a lot of people in the fourth quarter. Yes, it's because the Browns were ahead and trying to game manage, but people were just screaming and chanting, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. We want Chubb. We want Chubb. And when they handed it off to Chubb, the place went nuts. Like they scored a touchdown. I'm trying to pull up the stats here just for context. Yeah, 13-10 final. I mean, I saw 2 touchdowns all game. One was by Jarvis Landry, the other DeAndre Swift. Huge run games for both teams. Nick Chubb over 100 yards. He had 130. DeAndre Swift 136 yards and a touchdown. Both leading receivers were both their tight ends. Austin Hooper 50 yards. Hawkinson about 50 yards as well. But Mayfield finished 15 for 29, 176 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. The only reason that doesn't look terrible is because the other quarterback was 15 for 23, 77 yards, 2 picks. Tim Boyle's stat line. But Baker Mayfield just... I don't know what it is. If it's not the injuries, I think it is the injuries. But if it's not, then we really have to start questioning if Baker Mayfield's the answer in Cleveland. Is that a conversation I'm going to have today on this episode? No, it's not. Because in the week since, it seemed to prove that it's the injuries. It's been talked about more and more. The week after, the defense played another good game against the Ravens. They held them to 16 points. But unfortunately, the Browns only scored 10 points, so that was a loss for them. And then they've had a bye, and they go right back to playing the Ravens this upcoming Sunday, but this time in Cleveland. So really interesting game there. I'm not sure the Browns are going to be a playoff team. They're still technically in the hunt. A loss against the Ravens this upcoming Sunday would definitely crush those playoff dreams, I assume. But nonetheless, very fun game in the rain. I took a picture in the stadium with the poncho. You'll see that right over... Where do I want to put it? We'll put it right here as well. I don't know where to aim. Right there. There's that picture of me in the poncho. But great experience. The Browns fans are hella supportive, which I love as a Jaguars fan because the Browns haven't given them much to root for ever. So it takes a special kind of fan to be dedicated to going to a Browns game. Some of these people go every weekend. Some of these people endure all the weather in Cleveland, which gets awful, as I was able to witness firsthand. And it just creates for a better football experience. You know, when you're in a casual fan base, you can tell compared to when you're in a diehard or hardcore fan base like Cleveland or where I live up in New England. Obviously I hate New England fans. You know that, just sports-wise, not personally. But they're hardcore fans. They're diehard fans. It's 0 degrees and snowing and the Pats are playing. That stadium in Gillette will fill up. Just like in Cleveland, it'll fill up no matter what. Relatively compared to Gillette, of course. But be on the lookout for that Cleveland video. I will have it out in the upcoming weeks. Now to get on to my team, the Jacksonville beepin' Jaguars. They have not won at all since we've last talked. They've lost to the Atlanta Falcons. They've lost to the San Francisco 49ers. They've got obliterated by the LA Rams this past week. Is any of that surprising? No. Did I think they could beat Atlanta? Yeah, but I wasn't shocked to see them lose. They blew the game. But what else is new, right? James Robinson seems to be the big point of talk, the big point of conversation in Jacksonville right now. He had a fumble last week with the Rams and seemed to have gotten benched for it by Coach Urban Meyer right after it, which has created a very concerning dialogue in Jacksonville talking about how unhappy James Robinson may be. So let's go back. We missed the 49ers game when I was gone. You know, that happened when I was in Cleveland watching the Browns game. So I didn't watch the Jaguars game admittedly. I didn't watch it live. I went back and watched some highlights, but from what I've seen, it was just a weird play style by the 49ers using Deebo Samuel as a running back. Just that type of sporadic play call where you're plug playing guys at different spots. They overwhelmed Jacksonville, I'm sure. They're just like, what? What do we do, huh? And their coaches don't know how to prepare for it. The players are too young to know how to anticipate it. And the 49ers just made the most of it. Kyle Shanahan, fantastic coach in my opinion. Just outcoached Urban Meyer, obviously, in this game. But Brandon Ayuk obviously has a resurrection game against the Jaguars. Almost 100 yards, 7 catches, touchdown. Deebo Samuel, leading rusher of the game with 80 yards and a touchdown. And then Jimmy Garoppolo, efficient as ever. You know, he had 6 incompletions, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. Trevor Lawrence didn't throw any picks. I mean, he had no touchdowns either. But 30-10 being a final score, I don't think the 49ers are great, but better in Jacksonville, that's not too far of a stretch. Now, when they played Atlanta, they were at home. I said, you know what? They should stand a good shot against them, right? You would think, but the problems, again, with Jacksonville, you put a guy in the backfield for the opposing team that isn't really a running back, but is fast and crafty and just finds the openings on the field, devastating the Jacksonville's game plan. Just they don't know what to do with it. Cordero Patterson, in this case, ran 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, what? Cordero Patterson, fantastic player this year. One of the most improved players in the NFL this year. Jaguars cannot possibly allow that type of stat line to him. And then lose by a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence threw a touchdown. threw a pick as well. So did Matt Ryan, though. So that, you know what? He kept up with Matt Ryan, and he outthrew him in the passing game. He had double the attempts passing, but nonetheless, when your leading receiver is Laquan Treadwell, I got to give credit to Trevor Lawrence there and say that's not his fault necessarily. But Jaguars lost that game. And then last week, they played the Rams, which I was fully prepared for them to get absolutely destroyed. They did get destroyed. Somehow looked a little better than I thought it was going to. Not really, though. You had Matt Stafford, just about 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. You had Sony Michel, 120 yards and a touchdown. Like, you had Deebo Samuel and Cordero Patterson run on you. Okay, like, whatever. They're weird, they're athletic, they're skillful players. But Sony Michel, man, I like Sony Michel, as a player. I think in college he was fantastic, but you're giving up 121 yards and a touchdown to Sony Michel. You should be ashamed of yourselves as a defense, Jacksonville. And Cooper Kupp, 130 yards and a touchdown. I don't care if he had 200 yards. It's Cooper Kupp. I was expecting him to decimate the defense more. But again, Laquan Treadwell is the leading receiver for Jacksonville. And the leading rusher, Carlos Hyde. Like I mentioned before, James Robinson seemed to be benched after a fumble, even though, if I'm not mistaken, there's Aaron Donald who ripped it out of his hands. Doesn't really seem to be the running back's fault, but Urban Meyer benched him. James Robinson only finished that game with 8 carries, 24 yards. Carlos Hyde had 9 carries. Laviska Shenault had 3 carries. He had 1 more yard than you and I did that week. Just not good. Jags 2-10 now. Seems to be back in the conversation for top pick next year. Seemed like there were going to be a lot of teams in front of them, so they wouldn't get it. All of a sudden, you look at the NFL standings, and you go by the league, suddenly Jacksonville owns the number 2 pick right now, which is crazy to me. The Detroit Lions are the only team worse with 1 win, but the Lions are on a winning streak. The Lions just won a game. The Jags have lost their past X amount of games. So it's rough. It is rough. Trevor Lawrence needs more weapons. Hell, he even, not only does he need more weapons from outside other teams in the league or free agents or draft picks, he needs the weapons from his own damn roster, and his coaches won't give it to him. You have Trevor Lawrence out at a press conference today saying that our best, James Robinson is one of our best players. He needs to be on the field. And Trevor's right. I don't think this is the time to punish James Robinson for fumbling a ball against the LA Rams. Who cares, Urban Meyer? Who cares? You're out here admitting that you don't even control a lot of the personnel during the game, and you're the head coach. You came in here prioritizing the interests and the benefits of the players, and you're benching players for fumbling to one of the greatest defensive players of all time? You're making an example out of a former 1,000-yard rusher when your defense is getting torched, when your receivers are dropping passes for your rookie quarterback, when your offensive linemen are lining up wrong after timeouts? You're having illegal formation problems after timeouts. What are you doing? Those are the problems I want to see addressed, Urban. I don't care about teaching James Robinson a lesson, because he's going to teach us a lesson when he leaves our ass in free agency and goes to a team that's going to actually use him correctly. I don't know. It is what it is. We're on to Tennessee, which could be a terrible thing. But again, the Titans, one of the better teams in the AFC. They had, I believe they're 8-4, if not 9-4 now. Actually, I want to check that before I go say that they're. I thought 8-4. 8-4 is going to be the guess I go with. Yeah, they're 8-4. So all of that lines up for the Jaguars to get beat up again. That being said, going back to the Detroit Lions conversation we had, they beat the Vikings, division rivals. Jaguars' division rival are the Titans. So hopefully they show a little bit of dignity, a little bit of willingness to win or willingness to achieve success. But if not, we'll be back here next week to talk about the bull that they put out for me to watch for 3 hours. I'll still be watching, you know that. But moving on, I wanted to quickly touch base to address a past promise I made to you. If you watched a few episodes back, if you watched multiple episodes back, you would know that I put out a list of my ranking of quarterbacks in the past 2 years based on how they've been the past 2 years. You had the weird ones like the players who haven't played this year but played last year, like Deshaun Watson, all that. Anyway, I said that week 14 would be the week that I get back into it and kind of reassess that list. I may have said episode 14, but with the little gap we took, we'll do week 14 of football instead. Pulling up that list now, we have Mahomes leading it, which some people would put Brady there in the past 2 years. I can't disagree, just because Brady is a Super Bowl champion last year. This year he's leading the league in touchdowns, leading the MVP race. So you could easily put Brady one. I wouldn't hate you for it, but to me, Mahomes is still number 2. He's finally showing again why he's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever pick up a football, talent-wise. And if you've been watching this podcast, you know that not for 1 second did I think the Chiefs were not going to be good this year, that they weren't going to turn it around. I still think they're going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I still think they can go and win the Super Bowl. And Mahomes is starting to show that again. Slowly but surely. It's not perfect. The Chiefs aren't completely back, but their defense is playing a hell of a lot better, which, you know, the offense doesn't have to try as hard when the defense is doing better than what people expect of them. I had Rodgers 3, Kyler 4, Allen 5. I think Rodgers being 3 is perfectly appropriate still. Kyler being 4, he's missed a few weeks, but I don't think that really dismisses him from the conversation that he's one of the best in the league. Josh Allen, a lot of people are going to say he should be lower on the list because of how he's been these past few weeks. Say what you want about him. That New England snow game we just watched, I'm not taking anything from that snow game besides that Bill Belichick's a genius, but we all knew that. So, yeah, the snow game, people want to say, oh, you know, the Pats won, so that means they're better in Buffalo. They're the best team in the AFC. No, it's a snow game. Crazy, or I keep saying snow game. Excuse me. The wind seemed to be the big part of that game. Snow kind of died off by the second half, but one of the craziest wind games I've ever watched. They play again, by the way, Bills and Patriots, the day after Christmas. Maybe you might know someone going to it. Hint, hint. After that, I have Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan. I see Justin Herbert there. He might be the candidate to have jump ahead of Josh Allen. Maybe. Russell Wilson, if anything, he'd move further down the list because of his injury. And frankly, when he's on the field, he actually hasn't been looking good at all. So maybe we move Watson down the list. Wilson down the list, but Deshaun Watson also hasn't played this year. He's not going to. You can't play 50% of the data and expect me to put you in the top anymore. So people like Lamar Jackson, who I had after Matt Ryan, I'll put Lamar Jackson up there with Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. He's been looking rough the past few weeks too. He's been making terrible throws, Lamar, with turnovers, but I still think he deserves to be higher there. Kirk Cousins deserves to be higher. I had Matt Stafford down here after Kirk Cousins. He should be way higher. Matt Stafford is the second quarterback in touchdowns in the NFL this year. So I would put Matt Stafford above Kirk Cousins, above Matt Ryan, above Deshaun Watson, above Lamar Jackson this year, definitely. And Russell Wilson, yeah, then you'd have Stafford in the Herbert, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray conversation, which I think he belongs there. Dak Prescott, I'm a little biased. I'm a big Dak Prescott fan, for those of you that know me. He's looked shaky, but also so is the Cowboys. They've lost some receivers here and there. They've lost some personnel. They didn't have Mike McCarthy last week, even though they won. So I think Dak staying there might be appropriate for now, but I definitely see him moving further up the list later on. We'll put Watson below him. We'll also put Watson below Ryan Tannehill, who Tannehill hasn't shown me much in the past few weeks, but he's done enough to keep his team where they are. That's good enough for me. Good on you, Ryan Tannehill. Ben Roethlisberger being the next one. I think he deserves to go higher up on the list for what he's shown. Reports have come out that this may be his final season as an NFL quarterback. But despite all of that, despite the fact that the Steelers have been falling apart, I'd put Ben above Cousins, above Watson at this point. Yeah. So Roethlisberger probably deserves to be higher. Derek Carr I had after Roethlisberger. You can put Carr higher up on the list. Then I put Baker Mayfield. And I had Baker Mayfield ahead of Joe Burrow, which... terrible take on my part. I don't know how I didn't notice that when I made this list on October 10th that I made that terrible take. We're going to move Baker down. Obviously, Burrow's going up past Baker. In my opinion, he's been better than... See, it's tough because I can't say that Burrow's been better than, like, Dak Prescott. He's probably right there with him. Ryan Tannehill's... The fans of Tannehill are going to say his efficiency is way better than Burrow's and that his team success matters. Fair. But Burrow definitely deserves to be higher than where I put him there. Then I put Teddy Bridgewater. Then I put Jared Goff, who may deserve to be lower now for his past few weeks, but he's in Detroit, so I have a hard time really holding that against him fully. Daniel Jones being there. I had Daniel Jones above Carson Wentz, which I no longer can do that. Carson Wentz above Daniel Jones. Carson Wentz above Jared Goff. Carson Wentz above Teddy Bridgewater. Carson Wentz above Baker Mayfield. Has to be, I would say. I don't even know the stats for these. I'm just completely spitballing based on what I'm just watching, the eye test from this season. And Carson Wentz has the Colts in a very good situation. Colts are a much better team than the Browns, yes. But I think Wentz deserves some of that credit. He's been able to stick in there, and he's put out some pretty impressive performances in the past month or two. Next, I put Gardner Minshew, which if I did this an episode ago, I wouldn't have Gardner Minshew anywhere. I'd probably put him lower on this list. But man, Gardner Minshew balled out last week, didn't he? It was the Jets, but he balled out. He looked like a stud. He looked like a QB1. He looked like a guy I had above Jalen Hurts anywhere on this list. Put Minshew higher on that list. You know he has to be higher. Come on now. He's above Daniel Jones. He's above Jared Goff. He might be above Teddy Bridgewater and where Baker Mayfield is, I think. I'm biased, of course, so Minshew Mania for life. Nerding out there. But then we had Sam Darnold, we have Jalen Hurts, and we have Jameis Winston. None of those quarterbacks have shown any reason for me to move them higher on the list, that's for sure. Winston got hurt, not his fault. Jalen Hurts has been awful, where Minshew looks better than him, so we're going to keep Minshew above Hurts. And Darnold started off the year fantastic. He's since fallen off the face of the earth. The Panthers have since gotten Cam Newton, and Cam Newton had one good week, and then he kind of looks worse than Sam Darnold. But despite that, I would probably move Darnold lower on the list. Next, I had Jimmy Garoppolo. We're going to move him higher on the list. I don't like Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of like a guy I can trust as a quarterback, but he's above Winston. He's above Hurts right now. He's above Darnold right now. He's above Minshew right now. He's above Daniel Jones right now. He's above Jared Goff right now. And he's above Teddy Bridgewater right now, frankly. Good for Jimmy G. Ryan Fitzpatrick, we haven't seen him play all year. He has to stay at the bottom of this list, and he's not coming back. He got season-ending surgery. Andy Dalton, one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league, other than Gardner Minshew, in my opinion. There's others, but just for this immediate list, I'd move Andy Dalton higher on the list. I put him past Mitch Trubisky, Ryan Fitzpatrick at this point. And then you have Dalton with like Darnold and Hurts and Jameis Winston, which I think that's sometimes I bet you some people would take Andy Dalton over Darnold, Hurts, or Winston? I don't know. Would I? I still think Jalen Hurts has some skill in him. I don't think it's just him being awful. I think some of his development's been hurt, especially now with Minshew there. There's going to be the Minshew mania that always rattles the quarterback ahead of him. We saw it with Nick Foles. Jacoby Brissett I put here. I don't even have Tua on this list, I've noticed, because he wasn't starting when I made this list. So we'll take out Brissett. We'll put Tua's name there, and we'll move Tua above Dalton, above Trubisky, above Fitzpatrick, above Winston, above Hurts, above Darnold, above Daniel Jones, above Goff, above Teddy, above Minshew, above Baker, and then I'd have him somewhere there with Carr, Roethlisberger, Tannehill. Definitely the lowest of those names. He's definitely the bottom of those four I just named, but he deserves to be higher. And then last on this list, I had Cam Newton. Sorry to my buddy Blaze, he's not going to like this, but I'm moving Cam Newton above Mitch Trubisky, above Ryan Fitzpatrick, above... Again, sorry to my friend Blaze, who's a Saints fan. I move Cam Newton right where Jameis Winston, Jalen Hurts, Sam Darnold, those guys are. He's right about there. Are there any honorable mention in the meantime? Yes. Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke better than Cam Newton, better than Andy Dalton, better than Mitch Trubisky, better than Fitzpatrick. This year has been better than Winston, been better than Hurts, been better than Darnold, been better than Minshew. Been better than Daniel Jones, been better than Goff, been better than Teddy Bridgewater, been better than Baker Mayfield, maybe better than Carson Wentz too. Taylor Heineke, I can't say enough impressive things about him. He just keeps finding a way to keep his team in it, and he's doing just enough to make his team win some of those games. You can't hate on that. Can't hate on Taylor Heineke for that at all. Who are we forgetting? Are we forgetting any other names that have emerged since making this list? Yeah, we have the Jets quarterbacks, I guess. We have Zach Wilson I didn't put on this list. Because we have the rookies weren't on this list. That's why Trevor Lawrence isn't here. That's why Mac Jones isn't here. Some of you are saying Mac Jones would be really high in this list. For kicks, let's run through this with Mac Jones. He didn't play last year, so it really hurts his 2-year window of this chart. But he's been better than Mitch Trubisky. This 1 year, he's been better than Mitch Trubisky in the past 2. He's been better than Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's been better than Jameis Winston. He's been better than Jalen Hurts. He's been better than Sam Darnold, Minshew, Daniel Jones, Goff, Teddy, Baker, Wentz, Roethlisberger, Tannehill. Mac Jones has been great this year, but the fact he's only played this year, he doesn't have a full season under his belt in this 2-year window that we're talking about. Remember, it's a 2-year window. That's why Deshaun Watson's here. That's why Mitch Trubisky's here. I got to see more out of Mac Jones. I mean, you threw 3 passes, your team still won last week. I don't know if that's... I don't want to sound like the Brady haters of the past 10, 20 years who are like, system quarterback. Mac Jones is good. He's better than I thought he was, that's for sure. But I need to see more before we start crowning him up here in this upper echelon of quarterbacks, you know. We don't want to get too early on that. But I think that's a pretty good update to the list. Again, end of the year, once the playoffs start, we'll revisit it. We'll power rank the playoff quarterbacks. That'll be something we can do. But in the meantime, one final thing I wanted to do is look up the NFL awards race odds that Vegas currently has out there. And we're going to play Hit or Stand NFL Award Odds Edition. I'm going to tell you what the live line odds are according to Vegas Insider. And I'll tell you hit or stand. Hit being that if I stand, I agree with the quarterback that's favorite or the position that's favorite for whatever award it may be. If I say hit, that means give me another card. I'm taking another candidate. I think they're going to be the ones that emerge victorious by the end of the season. NFL MVP. Your overwhelming favorite as of December 7th, which is yesterday. I'm filming this on December 8th. Actually, I'm filming this on December 9th. It's 5 a.m. right now. Not that I usually want to give away when I film these. Usually they're earlier in the week. This week was later. The sky looks a little bright for 5 a.m., but we'll forgive that. Overwhelming MVP favorite as of December 7th, Tom Brady. Second on the list, Aaron Rodgers. Third on the list, tied, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. I'm going to have to say stand here. I think Tom Brady is the clear-cut MVP right now. Just playing out of his damn mind, to the disgust and sadness of all other 31 NFL teams' fan bases, including me and the Jaguars fan base. I think Tom Brady's going to get his MVP award. People are starting to say Jonathan Taylor for MVP. That probably won't happen, but Jonathan Taylor has been on absolute tear lately, and we'll likely see him on this list coming up. Speaking of the devil, NFL Offensive Player of the Year. Seems to be a two-man race right now between the aforementioned Jonathan Taylor, running back of the Colts, and Cooper Kupp, receiver of the LA Rams. They have the odds the exact same, plus 160 for both Kupp and Jonathan Taylor. Hit or stand? Hit or stand? Well, I'll tell you what, I do think it's going to be one of those two players. So if you want me to stand on the favorite, yeah, I'll stand on the favorite because they're both the exact same. But I won't get out of that with a political answer for you. I'll give you the answer I can. It's going to be a hard decision between these two. I ultimately think Jonathan Taylor gets it. I think the running back advantage there is going to help him. He's going to get the ball more than Cooper Kupp every game. He should. Because Cooper Kupp should never be getting 30 targets a game. Taylor should be running the ball 30 times every game, whether they're up, down, left, right, or center. But Jonathan Taylor, just so sad for me to see him in a division rival's uniform. But I'm such a fan of Jonathan Taylor. That might be the first and only Colts jersey you ever see me buy. Tell you what, if he wins Offensive Player of the Year, you'll see a Jonathan Taylor jersey on me by the start of the following season. Next, we have NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Slight favorite is Pittsburgh's TJ Watt. Second on the list is a man I watched in person play, Cleveland Browns' Myles Garrett. After that, you have slightly behind Myles Garrett, cornerback of the Dallas Cowboys, Trayvon Diggs. The fact that a rookie's in the top 4 for Defensive Player of the Year odds, insane. Good for Trayvon Diggs there. Deserves all the credit in the world for his ridiculous season so far. And the dark horse in the race is Matthew Judon of the Patriots, Mr. Good Old Red Sleeves. In this case, I'm going to say hit. I don't think TJ Watt's going to win it, even though his brother JJ would be quick to point out that he's still the sack leader after missing, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? So that's a pretty impressive stat. I think it might be Myles Garrett. I think that down the stretch, the Browns' defense is going to be on the field more. I think they're going to need Myles Garrett to make big plays for them down the stretch, and Myles Garrett's clutch. I think he's the type of guy who can do that. TJ Watt, though, I'm not shocked if he wins it, don't get me wrong. Like I said, Myles Garrett is right there with him in terms of odds. You have 200 to 250, Watt and Garrett respectively. Trayvon Diggs 500, Matt Judon 800. My guess is Myles Garrett's going to win it, but TJ Watt winning it would be neat, and I'm a big TJ Watt fan as well, so that would be very welcomed. NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's overwhelming favorite, the biggest favorite we've talked about yet. Mac Jones of the Patriots. Second, dark horse wide receiver Jamar Chase of the Bengals. I'm going to say hit because I think Trevor Lawrence is going to win. No. I'm just kidding. Don't put me on blast, New England. Mac Jones will probably win it. It's a quarterback. It's a quarterback type of league. There's no reason to have Jamar Chase win it if Mac Jones continues to be as great as he is. I don't know why Najee Harris isn't up there with Jamar Chase. He might be the only other person to even give Mac Jones trouble. Unless Trevor Lawrence decides to win the next 6 games for the Jaguars, throw 300 yards a game. I don't see that happening, though. I think Mac Jones is the easy pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And your boy will have to continue enduring the conversations with Patriot fans about, hey, we have the better rookie quarterback. Hey, Mac Jones is better than Trevor Lawrence. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Trevor Lawrence didn't. Well, guess what? Dak Prescott won Offensive Rookie of the Year as well instead of Ezekiel Elliott. And I would say that Ezekiel Elliott's a better running back than Dak Prescott as a quarterback. But lately, no one's really an Ezekiel Elliott fan lately based on how they've been running with him. So I'll digress. NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. The favorite on this list, this is now the overwhelming favorite by far. So far, Micah Parsons, big minus 2,500 odds. You have Patrick Surtain of Denver, plus 650. And then you have Odafe Owe. Feel bad for pronouncing that wrong, probably, but of the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, Micah Parsons seems to be the perfect pick here. Kind of surprised to not see Trayvon Diggs there, but Micah Parsons makes perfect sense being there. You know what? I'm starting to realize that I'll ignore the Trayvon Diggs part. I'm not even going to fill in what you're all going to say out there. You can. I'll let you do it. But yeah, I think Micah Parsons is definitely going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I don't think that's too much of a hot take right about now. NFL Comeback Player of the Year. This is a fun one because the overwhelming favorite is obviously Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. Second is Joe Burrow of the Bengals. And third is Carson Wentz of the Colts. Carson Wentz being extremely far behind in the odds according to the other two, or compared to the other two. But Joe Burrow and Dak both probably deserve a Comeback Player of the Year award this year, but only one's going to win it. It's going to be Dak, unless the Bengals just stay on top of the AFC, win the AFC, and the Cowboys fall off. You're going to see Dak win it. His injury was earlier on in the season last year where he missed more of the season than Burrow did. And he was able to come back this year and just start off the year so electric like he was, where for the start of the year, you weren't even having people talk about if he was Comeback Player of the Year. You're having people talk about if he was MVP of the league. So, yeah, I would give that to Dak Prescott. And finally, NFL Coach of the Year. This one hurts a lot because I don't see John Harbaugh anywhere on this list on the top 4. Rightfully so, though. He has lost his chance to be there. That was my dark horse pick, if you remember, at the start of the year. R.I.P. and peace to that take. But we move on. And the favorite for Coach of the Year is Darth Vader himself, Bill Belichick. Second on the list, Cliff Kingsbury of the Cardinals. Matt LaFleur of Green Bay is third, and Mike Vrabel of the Titans is fourth. Cliff Kingsbury, watch out for him having a shot to win this award. He has proven that he can win games with Colt McCoy as his quarterback when Kyler Murray's out. He has proven he can win games without Chase Edmonds, his running back, even when they get rid of Kenyon Drake from the year before. He has proven he can win without DeAndre Hopkins, his best receiver, instead using the likes of Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore. But I don't think it's too big of a secret that Bill Belichick will likely win Coach of the Year as long as the Pats stay on top of the AFC, or at least in the top 4 or 5, and make the playoffs, which they will, and does it with a rookie quarterback like he is with Mac Jones. That's that's a love story for the voters of this, not saying it's undeserved or unjust. I'm just saying that's going to be the selling point for them. And you could easily see Bill Belichick winning another Coach of the Year award. Do I see any Jaguars winning awards this year? No, I don't. Moving on. I wish, though. I wish. You know what? I'll say Logan Cook, punter of the Jaguars, you deserve a look for All-Pro or for All-NFL team. You deserve a look for that. He is fantastic. He is one of the best punters in the NFL. Definitely top 5 in my opinion. And then Trevor Lawrence, just somehow my guy, just throw for 300 yards, throw for 5 touchdowns, break rookie records. Take that award from Mac Jones, even though it is too late, and I know it, and you know it, and we all know it. Take it away somehow, please. Maybe January 2nd when the Jaguars play the Patriots, he can just completely outduel them and last second win it. I don't think that's going to happen, but a boy can dream. In the meantime, make sure to follow Pushing the Pylon, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Now, I've changed my name from Hauser Media to Pushing the Pylon to find us easier, so please follow the TikTok. That would be really important to us. And I want to get rid of this damn Patrick Mahomes card that I haven't been able to get rid of for the past 3 episodes. So if you comment the timestamp of right now, you win this Patrick Mahomes card. Make sure to do that in the YouTube video. Have to be subscribed to win this, though. Have to be subscribed on YouTube to win this. Until then, I'll hold on to it. But until then, this has been your host, Jim Tannhauser, coming to you live from the Pushing the Pylon Arena. Until next time, good night.